rugged landscapes and peoples of Africa's Great Rift Valley have long been a magnet for explorers. In 1988, Andrew Hartley, a young British archaeologist, returned to the harsh wastelands of Kenya's northern frontier district. His aim? To retrace the footsteps of Count Samuel von Teleki, the Transylvanian nobleman who was the first European to tread the shores of the legendary Jade Sea exactly 100 years ago. At 26, Andrew had already led a number of scientific expeditions to the area. In 1984, he became the first European to cross the Seguta Valley on foot, a remarkable achievement in one of the hottest deserts in the world.
I first came up here in 1981 after I'd been teaching in the southern part of Kenya, hitched up on the back of a truck, and I was so captivated by the people and the area that I decided I wanted to learn more about it, about the people, the early exploration of the area. And I did my research at the Royal Geographical Society. I was able to find out that Count Teleki, an Austrian aristocrat, first came here in 1888.
Count Teleki was a gentleman adventurer in the grand style. With the backing of Crown Prince Rudolf of Austria, he left the old slave trading colony of Zanzibar in 1887 and struck northwards into the interior. His imagination had been fired by tales of the mythical Jade Sea, a huge inland lake in the area now known to be occupied by Lake Turkana. Teleki employed over 400 porters to carry loads that included 2 tons of beads for trading, an iron boat in 6 sections, and half a ton of gunpowder. In 18 months on the march, he and his men suffered the extremes of hunger, disease, and attacks by wild animals and by local tribes. 40 of them never returned. In Teleki's day, the African interior provided a habitat for vast herds of zebra, wildebeest, elephant, and gazelle, which roamed the length of the Great Rift Valley. The hunters and the hunted coexisted in a balanced relationship that had lasted for thousands of years. In times of hardship or drought, large numbers of animals perished, but always sufficient survived to ensure the continuity of the species. That was until the arrival of the great white hunters. Teleki's passion for big game hunting went far beyond the simple needs of feeding his men. In the course of his expedition, he slaughtered 79 rhinos. Today, there are less than 600 left in Kenya. Hundreds of animals fell before his smoking gun. But for Teleki, the greatest challenge of all was the king of the jungle, the African elephant. He killed 32 of these great beasts, despite the fact that most of his men refused to eat their flesh. Even so, it would have been hard for him to imagine that just 100 years later, the very survival of the species he pursued hangs in the balance, hunted to the point of extinction to satisfy the demand for ivory. Teleki himself collected nearly 2 tons of ivory, valued today at £250,000. It was made into goods and trinkets for the wealthy upper classes of Europe and America.
I'm coming back this year to celebrate the centenary of Count Teleki's discovery of Lake Turkana and follow some of his route through these mountains on foot, this time using camels, as unfortunately I'm not able to get hold of 400 porters. This bit of road's too good to be true. It's gonna have to get worse. Suponze. Yeah? Kwenda wapi? Ah, wrong way. Yeah.
To reach the remote northern frontier district, Andrew had first to cover 500 miles of rough bush, separating Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, from the roadhead of the tiny village of Tum. In four-wheel drive vehicles, he expected it to take 4 or 5 days. On reaching Tum, he planned to meet up with the camels he would need to complete his journey to the Jade Sea. But 1988 was a year of freakishly heavy spring rains. Throughout northern Kenya, the normally barren desert landscapes were cloaked in luxuriant green. The unseasonal rainfall had taken its toll of the mud roads too. In many places, the track was all but impassable, where floodwaters had washed whole sections away.
Looking bad. Very bad. We might be able to get round it. There's no way we can get through it. We'll have to come round here.
Yeah, if we go around the side.
Take it easy when we go across that lugger, because that sounds like talcum powder. And it's just rain. We're likely to sink.
So, use four-wheel drive.
Four-wheel drive, and then at the other end, if it's too steep, stick it in low-gear ratio. Right. It's going to be
So four-wheel
dry
drive
on the,
all the way across.
dry on the surface, and it's going to be very, very soft underneath.
Right.
Just keep your speed constant, get it in second gear, and ton it
And
across
then
there.
whack across.
Yeah.
Luggers, the dried-up watercourses scoured out by flash floods, are particularly dangerous, even for four-wheel drive vehicles. In the dry season, their surface is covered by a fine talcum-like powder that appears safe to cross. But after heavy rains, the dust hides a treacherous slurry that can ensnare a vehicle within seconds. Before reaching Tum, Andrew made a detour to the village of Ilaut in the territory of the Rendili people. The Rendili are renowned throughout the northern frontier district for their camel handling skills. It was at Ilaut in the uplands, bordering the Great Rift Valley, that Andrew planned to hire the camels he would need later. At Ilaut, Andrew joined forces with 2 companions from his previous expeditions to the region, Nicholas Longor and Karate Lenaron-Koito. Nicholas, a member of the desert-dwelling Turkana tribe, knew all the hazards and the ways through the Saguta Valley. It was this knowledge that made him so valuable to Andrew. He was also a useful ally in the lengthy ritual of negotiating the right price for the camels.
Okay, well, gentlemen,
Yeah.
we need some camels, please.
Okay. Yeah, you
We
can
need
get.
some 6 camels.
Yes. You
And
can
we need
get.
what sort of price are we talking about?
And the price we're talking about is 120 shillings.
120 shillings.
per day.
What do you think, Nicholas?
I think it must come down a bit.
And negotiate around perhaps 100 bob per
100
day
shillings.
per camel.
Yeah,
600 bob a day for 6 camels.
yeah.
Okay, we.
120 is a bit heavy.
I think.
But even with Nicholas's knowledge of the prevailing local hire rates and taking time out for a long day of negotiation, Andrew was unable to budge the old man. The price held at 120 shillings per animal per day.
This man's price is going up. Inverse negotiation here. Well, I'll thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you later.
The plan was that Nicholas and Karate would pick up the camels the following day and then make their way independently to Tum. There, the team would reunite for the last leg of the journey to the Jade Sea.
Ready?
Andrew estimated it would take Nicholas and Karate 2 days to drive the camels the 60-mile distance from Ilaut to Tum. In the meantime, he and the film crew would continue their journey by road, pausing on the way in the foothills below Mount Neru in the heart of the Samburu tribelands. This was the last point in the journey where Andrew expected to find good drinking water. It was also where he recruited Ben Selok, a young Samburu warrior, to act as guide and interpreter. Under the looming shadow of Mount Neru, the stream provided a welcome watering hole deep within the territory of the Samburu tribe.
Yeah, just down here.
So in fact there's more water. The river gets smaller as it comes down the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Dries up completely down here at the bottom.
Yes.
So you had a lot of rain this year.
Yeah, we had a lot in
It's
fact.
very green, isn't it?
Yeah.
Will there be water in the Saguta Desert?
No.
No water.
No.
Yeah.
Only
It'll be hot
green.
down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there many Turkana down there?
There's so many Turkana.
The Samburu people are constantly on the move, searching for new grazing and water supplies to preserve the fragile balance between themselves and the landscape that sustains them.
So where are these people coming from?
These ones are from the other side. They are from beyond Southern.
Beyond Southall?
Yeah. So
And
they
they're
are
on the move
migrating.
with- this is everything they have.
Yeah, this is a house now, a
The
full
entire
house.
house.
Yeah.
This is the roof on the first donkey,
Yeah.
the roof of the Manietta.
The roof, this is the roof
Yeah.
plus some thatches whereby they put
This
this.
is the size
And then
of
the upper
broker.
skin is
Yeah.
what they put on. I mean,
And
they
all
lay
this-
on.
And all this here is their containers with their water,
Yeah, those are,
oil.
yeah, for milk.
Yeah.
Nada dia nubu
Super.
ma. No go bobo. Bawa musung di mana?
Going to Wapi?
Aji bobo. Wana they are moving, yeah. And there is a dry river that way.
Why? Ask him why he's moving to a dry river.
This family was fleeing the effects of cattle disease by heading for new grazing in the dry lands to the west. There they would have to dig for the water they needed.
How will they find water?
They and then they.
Because this is the last surface water for 200
Yeah,
miles.
this one, yeah, this one.
The Samburu are a proud people with elaborate traditions and culture. Only by keeping aloof from the ways of newcomers have they managed to preserve the rigid social order that governs their way of life and ensures it remains in harmony with their environment. For the Samburu, cattle are wealth. They buy wives and social status. And the Samburu will do everything in their power to increase the size of their herds. They even depend on their blood as a vital dietary supplement. The arrow punctured the swollen vein, and the blood, stirred to prevent it clotting, was caught in a gourd. Later, it would be mixed with curdled milk and drunk as a nutritious meal. The wound was expertly pinched shut, and the animal appeared none the worse for its experience. The Kenyan government has earmarked the Northern Frontier District for rapid tourist growth. Within a year, it plans to double the number of foreign visitors to Kenya. That inevitably means growing pressure on the remote Northern Territories. At present, tourists have to travel in uncomfortable army-style trucks. New, smooth tarmac roads will open the area to exploitation by the mass marketeers of the tourist industry. At the same time, it will force the Samburu to confront new and alien cultures.
It's always interesting to watch the tourists interacting with the Samburu. At this particular point, the tourist bus often stops and the Samburu come to sell their spears and necklaces and everything they have. It tends to denigrate their culture severely. If they go out to make their jewellery and their spears purely to sell to tourists, then gradually they'll end up like a lot of the Maasai are down in the big tourist areas in the south of Kenya. They will no longer need their traditional lifestyle of herding. They'll be keen to move into permanent settlements and live entirely off tourism. And tourists might flood in one year, but it only takes a couple of problems in a country to stop the supply of tourists. And then it'll be too late for them to go back to their traditional lifestyle.
As they approached the rendezvous point at Tum, Andrew's team was several days' journey from the nearest petrol pump, doctor or telephone. All the necessities for survival, including drinking water, would have to be transferred from the 2 Land Rovers onto the backs of 4 camels.
What are we going to do if the camels don't show up?
If he doesn't turn up with the camels, we're in a bit of strife, my friend. We're going to have to get hold of some donkeys. We can't get camels here. We're about 100 kilometres away to the nearest camel, so we're going to have to get some donkeys. We need a lot more of them, at least 12. So we're just going to have to give him some time to get here. I reckon it'll take him 2 days, and he's taken 2.5. So we'll give him another full day to get here. If he doesn't get here then we've going to have to start hunting him.
There's no shortage of water around here anyway.
The disturbing absence of the 2 guides caused Andrew to confide his anxieties to his diary.
Sunday the 15th of May. Here we are in Tum, and I'm wondering whether I've made the right decision by employing Nick. The local police warned me against employing him, as he spent time in jail for stealing camels. He's a well-known conman. However, he spent so much time hiding from the police in the Seguta that he knows it better than anyone alive. It's for that reason that I employed him. On the other hand, we've been waiting here for 2 days, and I'm beginning to have doubts about him ever turning up. I haven't mentioned it to the director yet, but if Nick doesn't turn up with the camels, our journey to the Jade Sea will be over before it's begun.
Just worried about with his reputation. He's been in prison twice for stealing donkeys.
Yeah,
Knowing him, he's probably halfway to the Somali border now, flogging the camels.
yeah.
Anyway, let's hope he gets this evening. Comes here this evening, and I'll start getting a bit worried. Send out a posse after him. There's something on the road there, but I think it's just goats. No, it's some camels.
But don't mistake, there are some manyatos there.
I know them.
Some Buru villages.
Yeah.
Don't mistake their.
Well, it's difficult to see
Yeah,
in this
camels.
range, whose it is. Anyway, we'll give him till this evening.
Yeah.
Let's hope he turns up this evening.
Yeah.
Andrew!
Andrew, camels are coming.
Excellent, excellent, at long last. Hello, Karate. How was it? And where's Nicholas?
Nicholas is here.
Where is he? Oh, he's going the wrong way. What's the delay?
It had taken Nicholas and Karate a whole day to round up the camels, and that was only the first thing to go wrong.
It's quite clear that it had some problems on the way, and I was delighted when they eventually arrived. Apparently the camels had bolted during the night and gone all the way back to their owners. So Nicholas had to walk an extra 20 or 30 miles to round them up and bring them back, and had actually done the trip through the night.
Well, I'm glad to see you. He was beginning to get a bit worried. Well, let's get him tied up, and then you can tell me about how much they can carry, because I've not used camels before.
They are grazing now.
Yeah, okay, graze them, yeah, fine. We've got 4 camels. Do you reckon that's
That
enough?
night, Andrew and Nicholas made final checks on supplies and equipment and mapped out the last leg of the journey to the Jade Sea.
That's all we need. Route. Start off in Tum,
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I want to try and get there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then we'll move down to Parketti here.
Yes.
Andrew's
And then
plan
from Barkati-
was to cross the Saguta Valley, one of the world's hottest deserts. The route through it bypassed the barrier, a 4,000-foot-high chaos of lava and volcanic debris that separated the Saguta Valley from Lake Turkana.
And then drop down to Taliki's volcano, arriving at the lake at the same time and the same place where Taliki arrived, which is down here at Lotar. Because there's no good water. There's no water here, is there?
There's no good water for drinking.
The water is what? Soda water, soda lake.
Salty, yeah, soda.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, soda.
So it's the only water on the whole trip.
Yeah.
And the lake is what? Bad
Lake-
water.
Yeah, but you'll get a well at Matar.
Lotar is a well.
Yeah.
Salty or what?
It's a bit salty, but it's
It's a bit
drinkable.
salty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more
Drinkable
better,
for me or drinkable for you?
even for you.
Is it?
It's more better than lake water.
Right. Okay. I think there's a track down there.
It is difficult for the camels to pass there.
Although tough on the human members of the team, the route through the Saguta Valley was safer for the camels, on which everyone depended for their ultimate survival. But that wasn't the only thought in Andrew's mind.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to lose any of those camels because
Yeah.
I've got to pay 5,000 shillings if I lose any.
You have to-
Okay. And there's no way around that bit.
There's no way around.
Well, we're going to have to do it.
The team Andrew Hartley assembled to return to the Jade Sea was only 1/100th the size of that of his illustrious predecessor, Count Samuel von Teleki, a century before. But it was probably as diverse. The group now included Karate and Ben, both members of the Samburu tribe, Nicholas, a Turkana, and 2 Rendili camel herders from Ilaut. In addition, a film crew of 4, now increasingly nervous at the prospect of setting foot in one of the world's hottest deserts.
Nicholas has been absolutely excellent. We've got a great team together. We've got 2 Rendili camel herders, 1 Samburu and 1 Turkana. One of the Rendili only speaks Rendili language and is able to converse with the other Rendili, who speaks a bit of Samburu and is thus able to speak to Karate, our 1 Samburu. Karate speaks Turkana and is therefore able to speak to Nicholas in Turkana. As a result of all this, there have been some incredible misunderstandings, to the extent now that one of the Rendili managed to leave some of his Rendili food behind in the last camp, and so the Rendili are no longer speaking to each other.
Towards the end of the second day's march, the team got their first sight of the Saguta Valley.
Bloody Christ, Nick.
Wonderful.
Look at that.
What is the desert?
Can't believe it. Now, have you ever seen that before? Whole place is absolutely flooded.
I was absolutely astonished to see the desert in flood as far as the eye could see, and it could only have been caused by the incredibly heavy rainfall we've had this year. However, it meant a drastic revision of my plans because it presented a totally impassable barrier to our route.
That is quite the most amazing sight.
The flooding of the Saguta Valley was an event unknown in living memory. For the first time, it showed the true severity of the spring rainstorms that had caused havoc on the roads from the south. the rains were the heaviest recorded in Kenya this century. Andrew's concern was for the effect it would have on his route. His original plan had been to cross the Saguta Valley and approach the lake from the lower western end of the barrier, a route that would have been straightforward for the camels. With the Saguta Valley flooded, Andrew had no alternative but to attempt a direct ascent of the barrier, 4,000 feet of jagged, razor-sharp rocks and volcanic rubble. From the top, he would then make the precarious descent to the vital waterhole at Latar on the lake shore. To reach the barrier, the team had first to descend 3,000 feet from the rim of the Rift Valley. They crossed into the badlands of the Rift Valley deserts. This is bandit country, where the Kenyan government has little influence. As they descended towards the Catholic mission station at Parkati, the temperature rose ominously from 20 to 40 degrees centigrade. On arrival, they learnt that the settlement had recently fallen prey to a savage attack by the Ngoroko, heavily armed bandits and deserters from the armies of Idi Amin.
Parkati had been recently attacked by the Ngoroko, who had killed 85 Turkana women and children and stolen all the livestock. They'd also shot dead the Italian Catholic priest on the road outside the village. The classrooms are exactly as they'd been left, the children's clay models on the ground, writing on the blackboard. And it brought home to me the threat that the Ngoroko posed to us, some 100 miles or so from the nearest police outpost. Now, however, a few Turkana are beginning to drift back, and perhaps the settlement will be re-established. The Ngoroko are largely responsible for driving the nomadic tribes, Turkana and Samburu, into the settlements. And it's in these settlements that they lose their tribal identity. There's not enough grazing around the settlements to support their herds, and eventually the herds get whittled down. And I find this rather sad. Also in the schools, the mission schools and government schools, the children are taught, quote, that their parents are primitive, which I think is not entirely true, and it's very sad. I think that these cultures should be preserved, or at least recorded, before they disappear. However, its government legislation in 1982 has laid down that tribalism and the wearing of tribal decoration is now illegal. And it's only a matter of some 5 to 10 years before the Turkana and the Samburu, as we know them now, cease to exist.
But that evening, Andrew had other problems to worry about.
Now this morning,
Yeah,
we lost all the baggage from one camel,
yeah,
and the other camel carrying all the film gear, okay? Just went bush for 2 miles.
yeah. In fact, you know, on our way to Parkati, the second camel which was following the camel which is carrying the camera equipment,
Yeah,
get frightened.
yeah.
So when it get frightened, Ben left the other camel to run away. So everything was going on when Karate was chasing the camels. Karate also almost to be killed by the camel.
Why do you let the camel go?
The rope was tied on my knife, just around my knife. So when the camel got frightened, the rope just went through here, and the animal went.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to. You're supposed to hold on to the camel. You can't
Yeah.
expect a camel to wander along by itself, because obviously it wants to go somewhere else.
Mm.
Well, in view of that and the fact we've got enough people, anyway, I'm going to send you back to Tum either this evening or tomorrow morning, okay? And I want you to go around with the Mzee to South Hall, drop you off in South Hall, and get the Mzee to continue up to the road near Loringolani,
Yes.
okay?
Ben, in a moment of carelessness, had allowed one of the animals to bolt. The camel had thrown its precious load, which included a full jerrycan of drinking water, 1/6 of the expedition's total supply. Only by dismissing Ben would Andrew be able to relieve the pressure on what little water they had. The next day, the team would have to tackle the barrier. It was imperative to reach the waterhole at Latar as quickly as possible.
From Parkati, we're going to make a direct ascent of the barrier. From the summit of the barrier, we should be able to see Lake Turkana. The going is going to be extremely tough and very hot. It's going to build up into the top 40s, over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm now a bit concerned about the level of our water supplies. We've got a lot less water than I would have expected at this stage in the trip.
Andrew was now gambling that there would be a supply of fresh water in the well at Le Tar.
We're getting through 8 pints a day at the moment.
Yeah.
Each person.
Each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of water, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Do you eat camels?
No.
You don't?
No. If I get hungry enough, I'll eat anything. We don't have camels in England.
But Turkana do eat camels.
Yeah?
Turkana and Samburu.
Well, Turkana will eat anything, won't they? Eat vultures and hyenas.
No, I can't eat either.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, Nick.
Yeah. Fine.
Deal. Come on, Zay. Deal. Deal. The whole barrier is a mass of craters and new volcanoes. There's a tremendous amount of volcanic activity here. It's a very active area. It's the center of the Great Rift Valley. It's probably the most dramatic point in the Great Rift Valley. The landscape really looks as though it's something that God didn't quite finish off. It's a moonscape in places with no vegetation at all on the fresh lava. No water. Early tomorrow morning, I expect to see Lake Turkana stretching out 180 miles ahead of us to the Ethiopian border. Because of the fresh lava flows, I expect our descent to Le Tar will be a lot harder walking than today, even though the direct distance is only 4 miles.
That night, Andrew reread Taliki's account of reaching the lake exactly 100 years before.
Another hour of tramping through the sand or over stony flats, and we were at the shore of the lake. Although utterly exhausted, after the 7 hours' march in the intense and parching heat, we felt our spirits rise once more as we stood upon the beach at last and saw the beautiful water, clear as crystal, stretching away before us. The men rushed down, shouting, to plunge into the lake, but soon returned in bitter disappointment. The water was brackish.
Taliki's men were devastated by the discovery that the beckoning waters of the lake were so alkaline as to be undrinkable. Many of them died of exhaustion on the lake's shore. "5 days after leaving Tum, they gaze across the Jade Sea for the first time.
We go down to the water hole at the Tar, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you think there'll be water there?
Oh, I hope, because we just have one hole of water here, and we are left with one jerrycan. So, if the hole is dry, we shall be in problems. And the water lake is drinkable because it is salty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got to get down here through these volcanoes.
Yeah.
And then round to that inlet.
Yes. And then to that
For a
forest.
swim, my friend.
Completely long way. It's about 4 hours to walk.
Let's get down there. I want to get in it. Walking across the lava flows is absolute hell.
The heat is such that you don't even notice you're sweating, it just evaporates straight off you. It was some 60 degrees centigrade down there, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And the lava itself is jagged, sharp-edged, which hurt our feet and certainly hurt the camels. It took us a long, long time to get across.
It's not doing the camels any good. Even the wind's stinking hot. How much of this is it, Nick? How much of this lava?
Recruited a Turkana guide at Parkatid because we were going to change our route and go over the barrier, a route which I knew nothing of, nor did Nicholas. But as we progressed on the route, it became more and more evident that the man really was making it up as he went along. We zigzagged backwards and forwards all over the place, and I'm quite convinced the man had no idea where we were going. The day had been an absolute nightmare, extremely difficult. We were all absolutely exhausted, perhaps suffering from dehydration as well.
We got half a jerry can of drinking water. And there's not a drop of water here. Nothing. Salt water. There's one thing I can't understand, is why the hell we employ this guide, who's a local guide, who tells me the place is actually chock-a-block with people and water wells, and there's not a drop of bloody water here. You can tell him to give us a hand and do some ruddy work, and he's going straight back home to Parkatid tomorrow morning.
Kuja kwanza, kuja fanya kazi kwanza kidogo.
I'm not happy with that guiding today. I mean, we've walked the direct distance is from that hill there, okay, which map distance is 3 miles, walking distance is no more than 4 miles, and that ruddy guide's taken us 25 miles and halfway around the lake. I can't believe it. Through lava flows, 3 volcanoes, we nearly wiped out the camels, and the man's clearly never been here before in his life.
I think so.
Well, what do you reckon, Nick?
That's true.
He's never been near the place.
No. That's got many years without coming this side.
All he's done is drink water. I just cannot believe it. Well, we've got no choice, and the same applies to you lot, the film crew. We're getting straight out of here tomorrow morning, because that is it for 8 of us now for 20 miles in 40 degrees centigrade, which is an absolute upsetting situation, to put it mildly.
Events had taken an unexpectedly dramatic turn. Andrew originally planned to spend a few days resting at Latar. With only 8 pints of water to share between 8 people, that was out of the question. The emphasis now was on survival.
At Latar, I was presented with 2 choices. Either I left the film crew and most of the team under a tree in the shade where they would consume less water and pressed on ahead with karate and a camel, or we all moved on together in the hope that on the route we would encounter some water. The next definite source of water was at the permanent settlement of Loingalani, about 30 or 40 miles away to the north. I really intended pressing on till the end of the day and then making the decision again whether to leave people at the end of the day and press on throughout the night to collect water. It's a bizarre position to be in, to be walking across a desert next to an enormous lake full of water which you can't drink. To be suffering from dehydration when you're next to one of the biggest lakes on the African continent. Unfortunately, the water is saline, and drinking it only dehydrates one still further.
Okay, Nick, it's all right.
It was Nick who made the vital discovery in a cleft between the rocks.
Can I pour some on your head?
It's all right, just drink it, Nick.
The water was polluted and had been used by wandering Turkana nomads to water their camels and goats. But it was water that the team had no right to expect. Only the extraordinary rains of 1988 could explain the presence of this life-saving oasis.
Get all the jerry cans loaded up, mate. Hey?
Is it drinkable?
It is, it's wet.
The crisis averted, the team camped that night under a solitary tree. One of the Rendili predicted the future by throwing the sandals.
Yeah.
Can you ask the man if you can see where there's beer in Loengalani?
Amada da mse. It's coming.
There, it's on the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love to hear this.
Beer.
The following morning, Andrew's team headed northwards along the lake shore in search of the El Molo tribe. The El Molo live 10 miles north of the regional township of Loengalani. They're reputed to be one of the smallest tribes in Africa. The El Molo are the hunters of the Jade Sea. Traditionally, they have lived by catching the giant Nile perch, hippopotamus and crocodiles that used to abound in Lake Turkana's waters. Now the hippos are virtually extinct, and the numbers of crocodiles
Nick?
have declined dramatically.
Can you ask the chief? I've heard that the El Molo are the smallest tribe in Africa.
Yes.
How many people are there now?
Sasa nafikiri nyinyi mmeongezeka. Sasa Molo wako watu ngapi? 300. It's almost 200 but yeah.
200?
Yes.
That's pretty small, but is it getting smaller? Or are they is the tribe increasing now?
Mnaendelea sasa au mnaongezeka juu?
Naongezeka tu.
They're increasing.
Yeah?
They're increasing trade.
Right.
Yeah.
Last time I was here, the lake level appeared to be a lot higher.
Yeah.
With the water almost up to here.
Yeah.
You ask the chief, has it dropped dramatically?
Kwa nini wakati mwingine alikuwa hapa maji ilikuwa mingi? Kwa nini sasa imeenda chini tena? Imekauka. The chief doesn't understand about the lake. Maybe he thinks people from downside are taking a lot of water.
But this used to be an island.
Yeah, from here up to that small hill.
Was water.
Yes,
and we were on an island.
Yeah. Si hapa yote kwa maji inajaa mpaka
ile milima.
What does he say, Nick?
He said it's because of drought. You know, he doesn't understand.
He doesn't understand what the irrigation schemes and the dams they've built.
Yeah.
I see. But is it affecting the fishing, or is the fishing still good? And the crocodiles?
Na samaki na mamba? Bado tu iko. Still.
They're still there? Yeah. Oh, that's good.
The ingeniously crafted detachable harpoon tips are made from discarded motor parts. It's one of the few concessions the El Molo have made to the 20th century. In every other way, their hunting techniques are identical with those of their ancestors. But today, they must range over much greater distances to find the animals they depend upon for food. Their traditional way of life is increasingly under threat. As irrigation schemes bleed away the lake's lifeblood, the salinity increases and the wildlife disappears. Lake Turkana used to hold the world's greatest concentration of Nile crocodiles. Now, spearing crocodiles has become even more difficult and dangerous. To hunt the crocodiles, the El Molo first send in a beater who drives the reptiles through the reeds towards the open water and the waiting spears of his companions. Crocodile hunts are a rarity now on Lake Turkana's shores. Legislation protects the animals from the effects of overhunting. But legislation cannot protect either the crocodiles or the El Molo from those who take Lake Turkana's water for hydroelectric power schemes or for irrigation. And it's not just falling water levels in the lake that herald the end for the El Molo's traditional way of life. Overlooking the tribal village, a half-built Catholic church is the vanguard of a culture that will one day overwhelm theirs. Though no one doubts the motives of the priests in the mission schools, many question the lessons they teach and their impact on a lifestyle developed in harmony with the unforgiving environment. Behind the wheel of a Land Rover once again, Andrew Hartley's team headed for the regional township at Loyangalani. The famous explorer, Wilfred Thesiger, has lived in northern Kenya for 30 years. In that time, he has witnessed profound and irreversible change.
Well, it's very different to what it was like when I first came here. It was a closed district, which you had to get a very special pass to come into. There were virtually no schools here, and the tribal life was still going on as it had gone on in the past, which of course was what I was looking for. But I have seen it gradually develop. And it is an inevitable change. I mean, you couldn't wish it otherwise, really. These people have got opportunities today, some of them, which they would never have had in the past. Against that, you've got to set the fact that with this massive education, everybody more or less being educated, and a lot of them being in school for as much as 12 years. Their tribal way of life and their family way of life no longer satisfies them. And there aren't the jobs for them, and therefore they tend to hang about the place doing nothing.
As the probable birthplace of the human race, archaeologists have called Africa's Rift Valley the cradle of mankind. But here, in the 20th century, what does the future hold for those who inhabit this remote and ancient region? From the air, the primeval landscape appears changeless, immune to the forces of human history. But written upon it is the evidence of modern man's inability to understand its subtleties or live within it.
There are a terrific number of aid projects around this area, a lot of which are not synchronized. One example is Calico, otherwise known as Ferguson's Gulf, where the Norwegians have spent millions of dollars building a pier, bringing up a trawler, and setting up a fish factory.
On paper, the scheme seemed flawless. It failed because it took no account of the falling water level in the lake or the Turkana people's contempt for fishing as a way of life.
The pier is now some distance away from the lake shore. The trawler sank and the fish factory has never ever operated. It's a classic example of a badly researched aid project and the spending of money needlessly where it could otherwise have been well spent elsewhere.
Perhaps the amount of aid in the area is counterproductive. Why should people from Europe or the United States know any better how to survive in a desert than Turkana, who've been living there for 2,000 years? The answer is they don't. It's been clearly shown by aid schemes which have dammed 3 of the rivers for irrigation. The lake level is disappearing. There's going to be a huge ecological disaster with no lake on which the El Molo particularly dependent. It's a very sad situation. I think I've been very, very privileged to spend time with the nomads, with Nicholas and Karate and the Rendili in the desert, because it's a way of life which is going to disappear forever.